You're having a good time on the couch with your friends. You're having a good time in the bed alone. You're having a good time watching TV. Let us ruin your day. Yay!
Welcome to Now It's Ruined, the podcast. I said ruined.
Ruined. Ruins.
Welcome to Now It's Ruined, a podcast for people who hate enjoying things. I'm Kate Bridle.
And I'm Larkin Harrington.
I do feel like sometimes people get the wrong idea about what this is. I don't know how to explain to people who don't get it immediately that we're not really trying to bring shit down, that we're not really trying to discourage people from doing whatever we're talking about or whatever it is.
I've encountered that a lot, and I have to be like, look, listen. Look.
But we're committed to the name now. And then I feel like the people who hate enjoying things, I'm like, if you're one of those people, you get it. If you're one of us, you get it. You all have to just indoctrinate other people for us. Advocate for us as you tell your friends and your enemies. And please do continue to tell your friends and your enemies. As ever, please go follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. If you have spare cash, please support us on Patreon by joining one of our paid tiers. For our $5 and up members, we have not forgotten that we owed you a bonus episode from last year, so we're going to do a double in May. And if you want to get those bonus episodes, plus all the ones we have backlog now, go join that tier. And you can learn things about cryptids and true crime stories and slave rebellions and pirates and all sorts of stuff. And April Fool's Day most recently.
Which was a real doozy.
It really was. It was a lot.
Yeah. I carried it with me.
Yeah, it's a rough one. Speaking of that April bonus episode, actually, I did want to issue a correction about something I said in that bonus episode. And content warning, right now I'm about to talk about some sexual assault and rape very quickly here. So I had talked about that horrible website that a bunch of men visited that was the quote unquote rape academy. What I had heard was it was 65 million men visiting every month. I want to clarify that what I've now learned is it was 62 million clicks on the website in a month, which doesn't necessarily mean it was 62 million individual people. Still a lot of men, so it doesn't really change my feelings about it. But I wanted to clarify for precision. Speaking of horrendous things in the world, it feels, frankly, impossible to move through the world these days without supporting unspeakable evil in some way or another. We all know that we should be boycotting certain big companies, but it feels like every single day brings the joy of another insidious puppet master being revealed behind something we enjoy. For example, my Coachella revelation, where I found out that the guy who profits off of it, gives to anti-LGBTQ causes. So I'm sure all of us assume we're supporting something terrible with the things we buy, like profits from this video game will probably help some guy burn down orphanages. This lipstick will somehow fight female literacy. This olive oil benefits the mafia. 2 of those, to my knowledge, are not true. But if you've got a bottle of extra virgin olive oil in your pantry, you might have paid the mafia for it. This topic, I have to shout out, was given to me way back, when we first started, by our friend Megan from college. She suggested it to me forever ago, and I've been dying to do it. Larkin, feelings on olive oil. Are you a fan?
Yeah, love it. I think I use it every damn day.
Do you just cook with it, or do you dip shit in it? How liberally are you using it?
I cook with it. I dip with it. I have used it in a slapdash, animal medicine moment. I use it for all of my salad dressings when I make my salad dressings. If I could bathe in it, I probably could and probably should. It's probably really good to bathe in it. Yeah. It's like cheese. It's like a lifeblood situation.
I love that. I like olive oil. I cook with it a ton. Love a good bread, balsamic olive oil, garlic dip situation. I've never been that into it, but I am now. Researching this episode has made me a complete convert. This is thanks to the author and journalist Tom Mueller, who is the author of a book that I used heavily for this episode as research. I read a whole entire book, you guys, and I'm excited to tell you the name of it. It is called Extra Virginity, the Sublime and Scandalous World of Olive Oil. Great title. And it is a great book. It's beautiful, it's funny, it's highly informative, and I highly recommend it. And I reached out to Tom to let him know that I was doing this episode, and he was very kind and messaged me back, which blew my mind considering he's like a New York Times bestselling author and a Rhodes Scholar who's been interviewed by the likes of Trevor Noah. Tom sent me a very lovely and thoughtful message and gently and eloquently entreated me not to actually ruin olive oil because apparently that was an unintended and unexpected consequence of his book and also of the article he wrote about the topic in the New Yorker, which is called Slippery Business. Man knows how to make a title.
You have a gift, my friend.
He should just name shit. He should just name every person's articles about everything. Anyway, after Tom published all this stuff, he said that he had a bunch of people be like, well, I'm just not going to buy olive oil then. I'm not going to buy any Italian oil or any olive oil at all. And he was like, no. It's like literally the best thing in the world for you. Just buy it from good places. He just kind of was like, please don't discourage people. I was definitely not one of those people who read the book and decided never to buy olive oil again. All I wanted to do the whole time was eat olive oil. I wound up buying 2 more bottles of olive oil based on like some of his advice. So yeah, I know that we always say we're not actually trying to discourage you from doing or enjoying whatever the thing is, but I feel like I'm holding extra responsibility now to Tom and the other oil lovers out there. So I want to emphasize, I am not telling you not to eat olive oil. You should 100% eat all of the olive oil. I am just going to tell you some stuff that's gone down in the olive oil industry, use it as an excuse to finally talk about the mafia, and then give you some tips on how to find the good stuff. Because it is good stuff. It's amazing stuff. As Larkin, you mentioned, it has so many applications and properties that we have been aware of for a very long time. The ancient Greeks, the Greeks,
you know,
them Greeks over there,
them Greeks down by the creek.
The ancient Greeks and Egyptians used it prolifically. Not only is it great at cleaning and moisturizing skin, its primary lipid, oleic acid, is also a great vehicle for food flavors and fragrances and perfumes. Plus, it's been shown to have health benefits for a wide range of ailments, including Alzheimer's and breast cancer.
What?
Yeah. Research indicates that just 2 tablespoons of olive oil a day can help you lead a longer, healthier life. Like real science behind this, y'all. It's not like superfood BS that we all have to raise an eyebrow at. But to maximize all of those benefits, you have to get the real deal. And that's not as easy as one would hope. Tom and other experts have estimated that 75 to 80% of extra virgin olive oil in the US is not, in fact, extra virgin.
Okay. I mean, I had an inkling, but I did not guess that amount.
That high? Yeah, it's crazy. But what does extra virgin even mean, and how do you find the good shit? Let's get into it. So olives and olive oil have held cultural significance since forever in many, many cultures. We've been cultivating olive trees since before we had written language. Olive trees are part of a family of plants that includes ash trees, jasmine, and one of my favorite trees in the entire world, lilacs. Lilac and eucalyptus, my 2 favorite scents in the universe. Olive trees are tough and stubborn. They thrive in climates that are hot and dry. They can take a beating and bounce back. Burn them, chop them up, stick them in the desert. They will just keep coming back. They're like the Deadpool of trees.
Resilient little babies.
Yeah, resilient, gnarly little babies. Olives are drupes, aka stone fruits. Drupe, D-R-U-P-E, although they are also droopy.
They are droopy, like lilacs.
Indeed. So stone fruit means that it has a pit surrounded by a fleshy part. So like cherries, peaches, those are all stone fruits. The fruits of the olive tree produce oil that helps nourish the seedling as it grows. It keeps it fed, it keeps it moisturized, even in the very dry environments where it can grow. And the fact that olive oil comes from the fruit rather than from the seeds makes it unique among oils that we consume on a regular basis. And that's significant because seed oils like sunflower, canola, etc., require a lot more processing to get the oil, including the use of industrial solvents, deodorization, bleaching, and degumming.
Oh.
I don't know what that is, and I didn't look into it. And
I don't want to know what that is.
Don't degum me. I don't like it.
Degum my seeds.
Oh, I want my seeds gummy. All this processing turns out the flat tasting neutral oils that we use for everyday cooking. But olive oil doesn't need all that rigmarole. All it needs is a press or a centrifuge to help separate it, and voila, delicious, rich, bold flavored oil springs forth. Okay, obviously it takes more work than that. It's not quite that simple to make actual good oil. Many oil makers work the same mills that have been in their families for generations, carefully timing the painstaking harvests and precisely calculating extraction techniques for the best result. Making good quality olive oil is difficult, time-consuming, and expensive, particularly in Italy, where the cost of land, labor, and equipment is higher than in other places. According to one of the oil makers that Tom interviewed for the book, which was published back in 2012, so we can assume these numbers are higher now, it cost them about €6 to produce a bottle of extra virgin olive oil, so they would charge 8 or 9 per bottle to turn a profit and cover their costs. But when they charged that amount, people would call them thieves because they were like, well, I can go to the supermarket and get a bottle of oil for €2. So this is extortion. How dare you? But of course, what's in that bottle of €2 olive oil probably isn't extra virgin or maybe even olive oil at all, but more on that in a bit. So about 6,000 years ago, the olive spread from Iran, Palestine, and Syria to other areas around the Mediterranean. Cultures all over the place quickly learned how versatile the oil was. Not only could it be burned in lamps, it could be used to cleanse, moisturize, make perfume, and of course cook with, as I mentioned. And as I said, that primary lipid, aka fat component of olive oil, is oleic acid, which acts as an effective solvent as well as an incredible vehicle for smells and flavors. Plus, it's got all those great health benefits. So with all of its wondrous uses, it's not shocking that oil has found its way into the legends of many major cultures in the world. Mary Magdalene washes Christ's feet with olive oil and her hair, which I don't necessarily agree with, but is a powerful image.
Well, it's supposed to be really great for your hair, man.
Well, there you go. It's not for me. It's not the oil part. It's the foot dirt getting in your hair.
Oh, washing the feet with the hair. Yeah, I've never liked that.
Yeah,
but it is, the sincerest form of I don't know, deference and.
Yeah. I feel like it should be grosser to me than it is, actually. Like, it's kind of sexy in a weird way.
Oh, no. I wasn't going there.
Just a slow, sensual foot wash. The hair. I know. It's Jesus.
I know. It doesn't seem like a good vehicle for washing other things also.
What, your hair?
Yeah, using your hair to wash someone else's. It's like a mop. You're just going to be spreading it around.
Yes. And if you're not, then it's just all the dirt is just in your
hair
put
now.
oil
Which I
all
guess
over
is
it,
part
and
of
then
it.
you wrap your hair around and just scrape it off with your hair.
Oh. Didn't like the gesture she used because it was, no.
And my hair is just so frizzy. I imagine Mary Magdalene has long, lovely, soft hair like you that's all silky like a shampoo commercial. That's probably the...
It's because she puts olive oil in her hair and washes...
Yeah, probably, exactly.
Jesus' feet.
Clean other people's feet with your hair and olive oil and you'll have lovely, luscious locks.
Only if they deserve it.
Sounds like something the manosphere is going to start demanding.
Yeah.
If you're a high-value man, your woman will wash your feet with her hair. Anyway... ancient Egyptians offered oil to the gods and put jugs of it in the tombs of pharaohs. Olive branches have been symbols of peace since the ancient times, partially at least because even though they are very hardy, they do require regular tending, which is not possible in peacetime, or except in peacetime. So in order for there to be olives growing, you got to have somebody
tending
enough
them.
Conditions. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, and that oil that miraculously lit the Temple of Jerusalem for 8 days in the Hanukkah story. Also olive oil.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Jesus and weird Jesus stuff, did you know that when Christ ascended to heaven, he allegedly left behind his umbilical cord and foreskin?
No. And this is according to whom?
Well, I don't actually know, but apparently it's a thing and was taken so seriously that the supposed umbilical cord and foreskin were kept in oil in the Pope's personal chapel in Rome in the 11th century.
Oh.
The Pope was like, yeah, I got Jesus.
Check it out.
Foreskin and umbilical cord over there. There's a lot that confuses me about this concept. Why does he still have his umbilical cord at 33? Also, I guess now we know that Jesus was uncut, or maybe he was cut and then like the umbilical cord, it rejoined him and then he left it behind. So many questions.
So many questions.
The logistics are baffling. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to meet someone who like specializes in this story.
I want to ask my dad.
Oh yeah, maybe your dad knows. I hope there's someone out there who's made this story their whole life and just
I'm
like
sure
really tried to dig into it. Though many cultures embraced olive oil, no one did it quite as enthusiastically as the Greeks. The Gricks.
The Gricks, as
Those Gricks.
we know they're known.
They took olive oil incredibly seriously. After all, Sirius Athena was the goddess of olive oil, and we all know she is not to be fucked with.
No.
That bitch will level you.
Seriously.
Don't do it. So laws were passed to prevent the cutting down of olive trees, and this was a crime that Aristotle said should be met with the death penalty.
Wowzas.
Yeah, big feelings about
Very
olives.
serious. Okay.
Yeah, the Greeks treated olive oil like Frank's Red Hot. They put that shit on everything. Food, statues themselves, each other. You know, as I mentioned in my Olympics episode, one of the goals of the ancient Greek athletes was to appear and be gazed upon as though you were one of the shining gods themselves. So they would cover themselves in olive oil during competitions, including during pancration and climax, as we heard about on the Olympics episode.
She's brought it back.
Speaking of climax, the oil was also believed to be an aphrodisiac, as well as a contraceptive. Don't use olive oil as a contraceptive.
No. A lubricant, maybe.
Perhaps, yes. But not as a contraceptive.
It's not a contraceptive.
That is not one of its proven applications. But oil was sexual for a lot of cultures, like whether or not it's an actual aphrodisiac or if it's just that people tend to get riled up at the sight of oiled up bodies. It is, it's a sexy thing. Glistening skin, built-in lubrication, as you said, plus it tastes good. It's just recipe for banging right there.
All in one.
And the Greeks still use oil for all sorts of things. They make and consume the most olive oil in the world at a rate of 21 liters per capita yearly. So 21 liters a person every year is what they consume. Here in the U.S., to put it in perspective, the average is less than a liter per year.
Wow.
It's a little higher in Italy and Spain. They each consume an average of 13 liters per year, but nobody compares to the Greeks. Not only do they eat it, they use it and other parts of the olive tree for baptisms, marriages, funerals, all sorts of mystical practices, all sorts of stuff. The Greeks really seem to figure out the true potential of olive oil, which we know more about now. Not only did they use it to lubricate their naughty parts, they did also use it to lubricate metalwork and statues. Olive oil, as I kind of mentioned, does help prevent corrosion, and the Greeks were aware of this, and we know this thanks to our old buddy Pliny the Elder, who famously died by volcano, as you may recall from our false eyelashes episode.
Matez chastised me for that and said it was Pliny.
If it's Pliny, we apologize to the dead man, whose name we're
to the dead man,
who didn't do his research too carefully about what he was writing about, so I don't feel too bad, to be totally honest. As you've already heard, the Greeks weren't wrong about all the seemingly magical applications of this wonder substance. As I said, we now have the science to back up olive oil's benefits, and this is thanks in large part to Ansel Keys, the founder of the Mediterranean diet and guy who I believe conducted the starvation experiment that you talked about on your Thanksgiving episode. He was a biochemist, an epidemiologist, and my fellow Minnesotan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Keys became interested in the link between diet and heart disease in parts of the world that consumed large amounts of olive oil, and he found that even though people in those parts had recently seen a war, like on their doorstep in World War II, and had therefore had limited options for nutrition, their risk of heart disease was a lot lower than it was for Americans who had not had war in their actual area. And Keys figured out that the tie between saturated fat and cholesterol was to blame for that disparity. So saturated fats from meat and dairy products can cause an increase in the artery clogging variety of cholesterol, whereas olive oil helps increase good cholesterol and reduce the bad kind. Keys founded the Mediterranean diet based on vegetables, fruit, fish, bread, and pasta with moderate amounts of dairy and wine and lots of olive oil. And I can get on board with that. I do love Mediterranean food. Part of Key's point was that overall fat intake wasn't the problem. It was the type of fat that Americans were eating. Unfortunately, that nuance got lost in the 70s when low-fat diets became the new big fad. The diet industry pounced, and fat of all kinds was deemed as terrible. It would cause you to gain weight. God forbid. Oh,
Oh
no.
my God.
The last thing that we would ever want. And could cause cancer, give you a heart attack, like all of this stuff about fat in general. So this idea spread from America to other parts of the world, and we've never really recovered from it. Like fat is still synonymous with bad, and that goes for both fat in foods and fat on people. I am here to tell you that in both instances, fat is not a dirty word and not something to be ashamed of having. And we now understand that the fat in olive oil is really super good for you. So don't be
Yes.
afraid of it.
And olives in general. You need a snack?
Yes.
Pop an olive.
No thanks. I
Oh.
find them gross. But I do like the oil. I don't like olives at all.
Need olives in my fridge.
Oh, really?
I have to have them all the time.
Now that I'm obsessed with the olive oil, if I keep eating good olive oil that actually tastes more like olives, maybe I'll work my way into liking actual olives, but not for me. In addition to its heart benefits, olive oil has many other benefits like anti-inflammatory and antioxidant components. I know antioxidant is kind of a superfood buzzword, and I'm always a little skeptical.
But it's a real thing.
Yes, correct. Antioxidants are a real thing. And I never really thought about what the word meant, but basically they are elements that help protect us from oxygen, which sounds weird because oxygen keeps us alive, but it also causes us to degrade, which sounds like a ridiculous parody of a news headline like, oxygen, you need it to live, but is it secretly killing you? More at 6. But it's true. Oxygen keeps us alive and also causes us to break down because it produces things called free radicals, which are highly reactive, unstable molecules that can damage our cells, clog our arteries, degrade our DNA, and break down our proteins. But antioxidant elements in olive oil called polyphenols help protect our tissues from free radicals. So slows down all that shit. Olive oil is good for your arteries. It can provide UV protection when applied to the skin. It can help prevent cancer and autoimmune diseases. And as I mentioned at the start, may even help fight Alzheimer's and dementia. Protein byproducts called ADDLs are believed to be a contributing factor in Alzheimer's disease. And the oleocanthal in olive oil seems to somehow cause antibodies to target ADDLs more frequently, reducing their negative effects on our brains.
Whoa.
And if all that isn't enough to make you belt back your daily 2 tablespoons of olive oil right now, I don't know what is.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So I think they don't know why. They just are like, oh, the oleocanthal in olive oil like encourages antibodies to target these negative proteins.
Amazing. I guess, I mean, they're going to keep questioning it, but that's one of those things you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And incidentally, a way to tell if your olive oil contains a good amount of oleocanthal is to see whether or not it burns the back of your throat. And it should. It should burn the back of your throat a little bit. So I tested the 3 oils that I currently have in my house because, as I said, now I have a problem. Thanks, Tom. And 2 had a sharper burn than the 3rd, but they all did burn a little bit. So I was like, all right.
Now I'm going to have to go try mine.
So like with so many things, the Romans mimicked the Greeks in their love of oil, but we're like, we're going to do it better and we're going to make fucking bank off this shit. The Romans made so much oil that there is a giant hill in Rome that is entirely made of old pieces of ancient olive oil containers. Like it's a huge hill that you can walk up and it's just all little like shards of olive oil containers.
Whoa. Talk about midden pile of all middens.
Exactly. Yeah. They industrialized the production of olive oil on a massive scale. They started shipping it all over the place. And they also had a system for preventing fraud in the industry. They used date marks and different ink colors to record information about the oil on its containers. And then they used those to track its travels, like when it was opened, when it was resealed, weight, quality, producer, all of this stuff. But olive oil wasn't attainable everywhere. In colder, more northern areas of Europe, people still mostly relied on animal fat because olives don't thrive up in the cold. And
Right.
in the Middle Ages, it was like the North ate animal fat and the South ate olive oil. But in the 15th century, motherfucking butter came on the scene.
Man, oh man.
Oh, yeah. And butter tasted more mild than olive oil. It was a little more universally palatable. And the French and the English started using it more and more. And then even northern Italy got swept up in the butter craze and was using it a bunch. But southern Europe was like, pass. One cardinal even said he thought the reason the North had so many lepers was because they ate butter.
I mean, they're like, hey, that's one variable. Those guys up there just chugging butter.
And their noses are falling off and shit. And so You do the math. Correlation equals causation. Butter
Sorry.
causes leprosy. People from the South would just like carry their own oil, like dignitaries and stuff. If they had to go up to see the royalty in the North, they would be like, we better pack like a whole case of olive oil because they're going to give us fucking butter. And ugh. Olive oil came to the Americas and its surrounding islands with the conquistadors from Spain. Indigenous populations like the Aztecs thought that it was pretty awesome too. They liked that it burned for a long time, that you could make light with it. The Spanish planted olive trees throughout Mexico, Peru, Argentina, and Chile. But then they realized they had done a whoopsie because New World oil started competing with Spanish-produced oil. And they were like, oh, whoops, shut it down. Like, never mind.
Shut it. Nope.
Olive trees achieve significance in the U.S. as well. On the Great Seal of the U.S., the eagle is holding an olive branch, and that is because of Thomas Jefferson, who fell in love with olives in 1788 and brought them back to plant in South Carolina. And he was also in the cult. He was like big into olive oil. He would like import gallons and gallons of it every year. And he was so obsessed that he was like, you know what the eagle needs to be holding? The branch of this non-native tree to the United States.
Wow. Yeah, that's... Put it on the flag.
Get it on the seal forever. Can you imagine having that much power to be like, whatever you're really into it? I could put Colin Hanks on the seal if I had that kind of power.
Right.
Colin Hanks on the seal of the United States. And I would.
She did it. And I would.
I got another one down the line, but we'll give a bonus here.
Mine would be so basic, white lady. I'd be like, cats. Put cats on the flag.
I want a cat drinking wine.
I want a cat drinking wine on the flag.
I know. I'm like, what would I put on it? What am I? At this point, I would also put olives on it. I don't know. So olives also thrived in California. They were brought there by Christian missionaries who were spreading up spreading up north from South America and Mexico. In the late 1800s, Italy had been left pretty impoverished by the series of conquerors that it had seen. Like a bunch of people had been just trampling through Italy and been like, mine.
Traipsing on through, yeah.
Italy wasn't unified at the time either. It was like there was Sicily and there was other parts. It was unified in 1861, at least for the most part, and the hope was to enable like growth and stability, which it did kind of for a while until fascism happened. So many people were already in poverty that many of them left looking for a better life. And where's the hot place to go to look for a better life in these days? America.
You fools.
God.
No,
Yeah,
it was
idiots.
definitely at that time.
Yeah, the number of them that actually got that better life, I don't know, but we have enough success stories to, again, pretend we're a meritocracy. So immigrants from southern Italy in particular flooded into America during this time, and as such, the demand for olive oil in the U.S. surged, and importation businesses started popping up. One such business was the Mamma Mia Importing Company.
Oh.
For a second, I thought I was going to get through this episode without doing Italian hands.
She's doing the hands,
offensive.
you guys. No, you can't.
I don't think you can legally say Mamma Mia without doing Italian hands, can you?
Actually,
I think that's in
yeah.
That's in the Constitution.
It is.
It's on the Great Seal of the United States. It's written on the olive branch. And it was founded by Giuseppe Profaci. Come on.
Okay. Yeah.
The Mamma Mia Trading Company founded by Giuseppe Profaci. Come on. You can't. Physically, I would have to sit on my hands to not do it. But if it's offensive, I'm sorry. I don't know. Sorry, Italy. We love you. Anyway, Giuseppe Profaci. I did it without the gesture that time. Giuseppe changed his name to Joseph as his business grew to Americanize himself. Thank God. So I don't have to keep
So
being
you don't have
tempted.
to keep saying that. But come on. Don't change your name from Giuseppe.
I know, especially if you're doing Italian shit. Anyway, but
shipping company called Mamma Mia. Joseph is
I
my
get
name.
it. Yeah, like as you're growing though, if you're being expected to be in like more and more like snooty spaces.
Yeah.
And you're like,
if you want to be accepted and pulled into the fold of like the big wigs.
or get into the room.
If
you're writing a
room,
letter. Yeah. And you're like, hey, I want to meet with you about my importation business. Mm-hmm. My name's Giuseppe Profaci. People are like, oh, meh. But if you're like, my name's Joseph Profaci, you're like, oh, what an American Italian man, you know, like,
yeah.
So by the 1950s, Joseph, was running America's leading olive oil importation business, and he was known as the olive oil king. Profaci wound up rich as hell. Too rich, in fact, to have made all of his money off of olive oil.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mean too rich as in he's an unethical billionaire. I mean, people were like, I don't think you possibly could have made that much money off olive oil, because he didn't. Turns out his olive oil business was not the only thing that Profaci was running. He was also one of the leaders of La Cosa Nostra, the American branch of the Sicilian mafia, aka just the mafia. Cue the Godfather theme, which we can't afford. We can't play it. If I hum it, I don't know.
Beautiful.
It's been in my head for like 2 straight weeks.
I don't think anybody's going to come for us for that.
Not as we stand right now. Maybe if we keep growing. If you keep telling your friends and your enemies, please get us sued for me humming the Godfather theme. That's our new goal. Now it's ruined to spread so far that someone actually takes legal action against us for illicitly humming the theme from the Godfather.
Or any number of other
offenses
betrayals
that we've committed. No one's coming for us, guys. That means we're not famous enough yet.
Exactly.
Let's go. But anyway, really cue the Godfather theme, because Profaci actually was the literal inspiration for the character of Vito Corleone, a.k.a. Don Corleone, Marlon Brando's character in The Godfather. And first, the book he inspired the book, The Godfather. And if I may Colin blanks myself, Colin was in The Offer, that series about the making of The Godfather. Yeah, there we go.
It's all connected.
Another quarter for the Colin Hanks jar.
It's all connected. It's all connected. That's the X-Files for me. Yours is Colin Hanks. I can connect everything to the X-Files.
We had just kind of been talking about Colin blanks when we were like ideating about it. And I listened to an episode of Red Handed, of course. And it happened to be a really horrible story about child sexual abuse. For whatever reason, my brain was like, what if that topic came up on the podcast and Larkin was like, Colin blanks? And I was like, she would never do that, because we would not do that. And that would be so inappropriate. But I was like, that would be it. That would be defeated. And then about a second later, I went, nope, I got one.
Oh my God.
Because he was in Friend of the Family.
Oh.
Which is all about that horrible child sex abuse case. So
it's always connected.
With friend of the show, Jake Lacey. All right, so here we go. As we probably all know, the mafia famously has business fronts to launder their money, conceal their illicit activities. Certain businesses are notorious mafia fronts. There is a reason that Tony Soprano's therapist gets nervous when he says he's in sanitation.
Right.
We all know there are a few: construction, the docks, that kind of deal. And in Joseph Profaci's day, olive oil was one of the popular fronts for the mafia. Joseph's son, John, eventually started his own olive oil company, Colavita USA, which was a spinoff which was a part of the larger Colavita company that existed in Europe already, but he made the USA branch. And Colavita happened to be the olive oil that I had in the house when I started this
oh my gosh
research. Yes. And I was like, oh no. Mafia.
Oh no.
But John Profaci insists that his father, Joseph, had nothing to do with Colavita's business. And that seems likely because Joseph died over a decade before John started Colavita. So he might have gotten some seed money from his dad that maybe came from some of his inheritance. I don't know what money he used to start it. But anyway. He's like, no, we are not a mafia friend.
No, I swear.
And it's pretty good. It has the burn. I think it's a decent. But if
I don't recognize that
grab
brand.
Something. Yeah, it's in our Ralph's. So I think it's in. You should be able to find it in Kroger stores. Anyway, put a pin in the mafia connection for now. Anyway, companies also sprang up in Italy to manage supplies to America, and this includes Francesco Bertoli Bank and Exchange in 1875, which eventually realized there was more money in olive oil than banking and became Bertoli Olive Oil.
That's the one that comes to mind. Bertoli.
Yep, that's probably the biggest. I feel like we all know Bertoli.
Yeah.
As oil use spread again in the 1950s, regulations began to occur. So in 1959, the International Olive Oil Council was formed to research, support, promote the use of olive oil. They have since renamed to the International Oil Council, or IOC, which I found very confusing throughout this because I kept thinking of the International Olympic Committee. Anyway, the IOC, not the International Olympic Committee, the olive oil regulating body, started noticing that not all oil is created equal, and new refinement techniques were creating big differences between the flavors and quality of oil. So in 1960, the European Parliament got involved. They got involved and passed a law creating new grades of olive oil for quality regulation. And the very best grade, extra virgin.
Extra virgin.
Extra virgin.
Yes, tell me about, I'm so curious. Why
I'm going to.
Why the fuck?
So to qualify as extra virgin olive oil, or EVOO, the oil must be made only by mechanical methods. It can't use chemical treatment and has to meet a bunch of chemical requirements for its makeup. And it also has to meet certain flavor requirements. There are panels of testers that taste oil and, give feedback and are like, this qualifies as EVOO or it doesn't. Extra virgin oil is distinguished from lampante, or low quality oil, which is like good for use in lamps, essentially. Like that's what lampante means, I believe. And even worse, pumice oil, which starts as black sludge before it's processed and is mixed with some EVOO and then sold as olive pumice oil. Don't eat that. As olive oil industrialized and became a bigger product, the opportunities for fraud and adulteration of the oil increased.
Sure.
So extra virgin olive oil can go through a lot of different hands before it winds up to the consumer. And so there are tons of opportunities to cut it with cheaper, inferior oils to save money while charging for pure EVOO. Tankers of oil may start in one place labeled as hazelnut oil, and magically, when they arrive somewhere else to be bottled, they are suddenly extra virgin olive oil.
Wow.
Also, the fact that it's shipped in tankers, like someone pointed out, someone that Tom had interviewed for the book was like, you would never ship like a tanker of wine.
No.
Like, wine is treated with more respect than that. It's also regulated a lot more heavily. The wine industry is very strict about its regulations, and they've had a big health scare at one point where I think it was a bunch of wine had like methanol in it and wound up killing a bunch of people. And after that, like there was a big crackdown. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
But that's not how the olive oil industry works. And there have been incidents that mean that it should work that way, but it doesn't. Like olive oil authorities just don't seem to, frankly, give that much of a fuck. And that's probably because of pressure from large brands that have come to depend on adulterating their oil in order to maintain a profit. And maybe also pressure from the mafia. But olive oil isn't alone in food corruption. There's corruption in cheese, God help us all, and other foods. 4/10 of supposed Italian food products are actually imports relabeled as Italian. So they don't actually even come from Italy. 4/10, almost half. So not just olive oil, but olive oil is one of the most adulterated foods on the market, especially in Italy. Cheap oil is treated to remove its unpleasant qualities, leaving a bland version of olive oil that is then passed off as EVOO to consumers. And large producers, as I said, have a ton of influence over the oil regulating bodies, and corruption seems rife at all levels. There have been some scandals and takedowns of oil fraudsters, including a large-scale one in 2002 that should have overhauled the industry, but it didn't. And the olive oil adulteration business is alive and well even today. In 2004, Swiss agronomist and olive oil producer Andreas Marz investigated the state of EVOO in supermarkets in Germany. And he found that of the 31 alleged extra virgin oils he sent out for testing, only one was actually extra virgin.
One.
Yes. The rest were lampante, which is technically legally unfit for human consumption. So
Great. Awesome.
I mean, it's probably not going to kill you, but.
And it's in those cheap little plastic bottles that.
Not all of it. Some of it's in very expensive bottles.
Oh, that's great. Well, at least your lamp oil is protected in its glass.
When Marz published the results of his tests, big oil producer Carapelli filed suits against the Florence Chamber of Commerce and the chemical analysis lab that was involved in the study. And the Florence Chamber of Commerce was in charge of the panels that had done some of the taste testing. So the suit against the chamber was about that. They were like, your tasters said that our oil was not good. So the suit against the chamber was thrown out, and then the Chamber of Commerce tried to sue Carapelli for damages, but they were instructed by a high-ranking Ministry of Agriculture official to drop the suit, and they did. And not only did they drop it, they discontinued panel test activities on behalf of private parties. So if anyone else like Marz decided that they wanted to investigate fraud in the olive oil industry, they wouldn't have those tasters at their disposal.
Fascinating.
Here in the US, adulteration is actually even worse because we have less oversight. As I said, it's estimated that 75 to 80% of extra virgin oil on our shelves is actually not extra virgin at all. And we've known about this problem forever. Mark Twain fucking wrote about it.
Okay, what now?
Yeah, he was like on a riverboat and he was like, I overheard these two business guys. And one of them was like, you know what's easy to fraud? Olive oil. Even though olive oil was actually a factor in passing the Pure Food and Drug Act, enforcement proved so difficult that the FDA eventually just was like, we give up.
It's not killing people, so.
That is actually exactly what they said, even though it can, as I will get into a little later.
Oh.
Can and has, but not as frequent. Like, they're like, we have bigger fish to fry.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah.
So, like, we're going to leave it to the oil regulating bodies to do that. And of course, the oil regulating bodies are being threatened and probably having their palms greased and all sorts of stuff.
sure.
So,
messy.
yeah, you stand up to the mafia then. So, yeah, despite finding a ton of adulteration in olive oil in every decade since the 30s, like there have been investigations in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and in the 90s they just went, we give up. They bested us.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was just a battle of attrition.
Really? Yeah. They were just like, who's going to endure? Not the FDA, as it turns out. So I was like, oh, olive oil grows in California. Great. I live in Southern California. I'm going to be able to find a producer here. That's great. But apparently Southern California, and particularly LA, which is where I'm near, is a major hub of olive oil fraud. And the problem is especially bad in the restaurant industry, where even fancy places are serving Lampante.
Wow.
Passed off as EVOO. I mean, I presume they don't know. But
right. We would. Why? Yeah. How would we?
Oil fraud is a highly lucrative business, and it involves large-scale criminal networks to pull off the fraud. And if there is a criminal enterprise in Italy, you better believe, as I said, that the mafia are involved. We don't know exactly how much of the adulterated oil on supermarket shelves has been handled by the mafia, but chances are we have all lined mafia pockets with our oil purchases at some point. And to find out how bad we should feel about that, without swearing off olive oil altogether, importantly, we are not swearing off olive oil. We are just going to make more efforts to find the good stuff. But let's finally talk about the mafia.
Yes, please.
I'm excited about this. I wanted to do way more of a deep dive, and I might just have to bonus episode it because this isn't going to be the deep dive that I really wanted it to be. But I, find it really fascinating, and I want to at least give the basics about
the
mafia. Okay, so this is going to sound wrong, but bear with me. There's something kind of fun about the mafia.
No, you and I have talked about this. It's
kind of there's a reason we keep making movies and shows about them, particularly here in the United States. Do we all know that they're criminals doing extremely horrible things? Yes, but I think that's like part of what we love is like the openness, right?
Yeah,
like
it's like we do this, and we know that you know that we do this.
We didn't know as much as we do now until I think like the 60s. Some mafia guy was just like, here's the deal. They operate very brazenly. Yeah. We just didn't know all of the ins and outs of their like society and structure and everything until a little later, but we knew the mafia was around, and so did the FBI. We know the kind of businesses they tend to infiltrate, the kind of illegal shit they usually run, their methods, their hangouts, their structure, their identities a lot of the time. We know who they are. The mafia are not anonymous, and yet we can't seem to truly stop them. There's kind of like an admiration element to that, I think.
Definitely. It's not vigilante justice because they're not like
robbing the rich and giving to the poor.
Doing that. Yeah, they're not doing that. But there is that like being just that intrinsically opposed to the quote unquote man that's got this kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's like a rebellious element to it. And there's almost kind of like an honesty to their dishonesty. Mm-hmm. It's this open game of cat and mouse that the mafia guys and the FBI like are all aware of and are kind of in on, and they all seem to take like an amount of glee in as well. I watched a couple of documentaries in preparation for this episode, like namely Get Gotti and then Fear City. They're both on Netflix and they're both very good. And in those, there's just like this vibe of mutual respect and like cheekiness.
Yeah, that too.
One of the guys on it was a soldier for the Gambino crime family, and he was like talking about the FBI, and he was like, their job is to catch us, our job is to get away with it.
Yep.
And if you don't manage to get away with it, you do your time quietly. You shut the fuck up, you go to jail, you get out, and you try to be better next time. And next time you don't get caught. hopefully. Or you do, and then you do your time again, you shut the fuck up, and you get out. The sense of fun kind of comes from the FBI side too. So the FBI has what they call black bag men, and these are agents who like specialize in covert shit like planting bugs. In the Fear City documentary, one of these black bag agents is talking about bugging the house of Paul Castellano. He went in as a cable repairman, and he was like fixing the TV. And he had one of the mafia guys hold the flashlight for him and shine it on the bug as he was planting it in the television, just as a little like, and I'm going to make you hold the flashlight while I do this. Ba-boom, I gotcha.
Whoa.
Thing. And this other agent, John O'Brien, would send Castellano greeting cards based on stuff that he heard on the bug. So like if he knew he was sick, he would send him like a get well card. Again, cheeky, playful, like, I'm watching you, winky, winky. What are you going to do to get away with it now? Which is like, if you're an FBI guy, you should not want to tell the person you're bugging that they're being bugged. Because like, what the fuck?
Yeah, these relationships that, and you know, forever immortalized in TV shows and media and movies is just like, that mutual respect, but also cheeky, like.
Yeah. And then like other guys found out about this and were kind of like talking shit and being like, should we fuck this guy up? Like, should we get O'Brien? And Castellano was like, no, he's just doing his job.
It doesn't feel like real life.
No. And that's, I think, what it is that I find so fascinating is I watch these documentaries and I'm like, these guys who were soldiers who did horrible shit by their own admission, just like talk about it because, you know, they've done their time, they're out. There's always that discomfort with it, right? Like if you watch The Sopranos, you're like, I really like Tony Soprano. And then you're like, he beats the shit out of somebody and you're like, oh, right. Whoopsie. I got too comfortable with that guy. They're complex. Like they're likable. They're funny. A lot of them are very charismatic. They're also brutal and ruthless. They're family oriented. They're like dealing with all of the same stuff that the rest of us are in their families, but with a backdrop of intense crime, sticking it to the man, like you said, while kind of becoming the man.
Becoming their own. Their own
they're like
governing.
Beating the man at his own game. Maybe.
Yeah. Which is, you know, why pirates are the same type of like romantic. Yeah. Oh, you're just a parallel reflection of the man. But there's like code and there's actual like holding people accountable and being like, hey, like my word means my word. That's not a thing anymore. Not to be like the chivalry is dead type fucking blowhard, but like that's like a huge element of it for me.
Yeah. We have a code and it's applied equally to everybody and it doesn't it doesn't fucking matter who you know. And like, yes, they murder people, but usually not without a reason, like you said, right? Which isn't great. I'm not saying like it doesn't feel senseless or even always unfair.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's
like if someone's murdered by the mob, your first question is like, oh, what do you do? Right? Like,
yeah. Like, oh, what did he do? Not like, oh, someone was murdered by our government and you're like, did they get it right?
I'm not saying it makes it right by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
I'm just saying it tends to make it more palatable.
Maybe this is why you need the whole bonus, because I'm like, how are women in general treated and how are gay people treated and how are
not good. There's an illusion of respect for women.
Illusion, yes. Illusions, father.
This is a total aside too, but just speaking of the like cat and mouse thing and the like, you know, you have a nemesis kind of deal, like Batman and the Joker, right? It makes me think of BTK and how he really wanted that and thought that he had it with like the detective on his case, and it got him caught after like decades of successfully serial killing people. After he got back in touch in like the 2000s, which I remember. I can't remember the ins and outs, but basically they were like, can you send us a floppy disk to prove that this is what you're talking about? And he was like, if I send you a floppy disk, can you trace it? And he expected them to be honest.
Yes.
And the detective was like,
no,
totally untraceable, friendo. Send it on over. And BTK did. And he was like, immediately traced it, found him. And BTK was really just like taken aback that this guy had lied to him. And he was like, you're fucking murderer. You're like a serial killer, dude.
Talking about?
Okay, anyway, so here's a woefully short rundown of where the mafia came from and how they became a well-oiled crime machine.
Hey, there it is.
People use the word mafia to describe a lot of organized crime stuff now. If there's a criminal enterprise behind something, it will be called the blank mafia. The rug mafia is one I just heard recently. But the mafia is kind of like champagne. If it doesn't have its roots in Italy, specifically Sicily, it's not true mafia. So Sicily isn't part of the main boot of Italy. It's an island
Right.
that's just off the toe, which I didn't know before this. Some folks believe that the mafia goes all the way back to the late Middle Ages, starting as a secret
Oh.
organization to keep power out of the hands of all the different societies that were, as I said, running through Sicily as Italy was being conquered. Normans, the Spanish, all these people, they were like, we need one thing that's going to be consistent as all these fuckers keep coming in and out. There is evidence that there were older crime syndicates like the Camorra that might have formed around that time, but the actual mafia specifically, we don't think emerged until Italy was unified in 1861. But it shared a lot of characteristics, the mafia, with the Camorra, that older organization. These criminal organizations were made up of mafiae, which were small private armies that were hired by absentee landlords to watch their property during all the turmoil that was going through. So these people are taking over, and much like England and Ireland, they're like, I'm going to buy a plot of land and I'm going to grow shit on it, and I'm going to just fuck off back to wherever I'm from and have someone else watch it for me. And I'll hire some tough guys to guard my property. And so these scattered protection armies started to organize themselves and soon became more powerful than the people who hired them. And they started extorting the landlords who were already being extortionist themselves. But they're like, you're going to fucking put your boot on our necks? I don't fucking think so. I'm in charge of your whole property that makes you money. Would be a real shame if something happened to it. If I really want to be motivated to protect it, I might need a little more than you're giving me. Capiche?
Nice.
Italy was lawless, so the mafia became the law. The key to the mafia's success lies largely in its structure. It's called organized crime for a reason, and they've been organized for a very, very long time. And in order to have a large-scale criminal enterprise, you need systems. You need a hierarchy. You need a clear-cut way of moving up through the ranks. And though the mafia is made up of different quote-unquote families, which aren't literally blood relatives, they're just what they call their individual pockets of crime organizations. So like an individual criminal organization is a family, and that's part of the larger mafia. So the families will run different areas. Definitely the families will get into wars with each other. They have rivalries, but they all live by a similar code, omerta, which is applied ruthlessly and pretty consistently. And the basis of omerta is, silence and loyalty. Keep your mouth shut, no cops. You don't go to law enforcement for anything. If someone has wronged you, even if they have committed a crime against you, you take it to the mafia and let the mafia handle it. That total control allows the mafia to contain the communities where they operate and build a system of loyalty even among people who never intended to deal with them in the first place. Because it's not always voluntary to deal with the mafia. Often it is not voluntary. Like we've mentioned before, some people have expressed that their neighborhoods improved under the mafia. If you have a problem, you could get it taken care of without going through legal channels, which can be really complicated and take forever and is often corrupt itself. So why not? But participation in the mafia's control over a neighborhood is not voluntary. It'd be one thing if a local mom and pop store could opt out. That's not how it works. If you own a business in the community and the mafia moves in, they will be visiting you to inform you exactly what cut they will be taking from your business from this point forward. What do you get for that cut? Protection.
Protection. Right.
Of course. Protection from whom?
From whom? From whom?
Criminals, you say?
Oh.
Interesting. I wasn't having any issue with criminals before.
Until this moment.
And once you start benefiting from mafia law, you're entangled, and it makes it a lot harder to go to the actual law enforcement. Although a lot of people have. I'm not saying that it's an absolute guarantee of silence, but it helps. The mafia spread to America with the wave of Italian immigration that I mentioned earlier in the late 1800s to early 1900s. And though New York would become their most famous stomping ground, they actually started in New Orleans. So they started doing Italian importing, the usual mafia shit there, gambling, etc. But their major activity in the U.S. started in the 1920s. Benito Mussolini ushered in the age of fascism in Italy and oversaw a large-scale operation there to overthrow the mafia and get rid of them. There were thousands of arrests made. The mafia was not permanently kept down, but it was crippled for a while. And as a result of the hostile environment in Italy, a lot of them moved over to America. And prohibition was the perfect environment for them to make a fuck ton of money. What's that, you say? There's an illicit thing that everybody in America wants and they don't know how to get it. You know what we're really good at? We have a skill set that we think is just going to fit right into this. And it also forced them to become more organized, the United States, the Cosa Nostra. Like, they had to become businesses, basically. So Prohibition gave the mob the gifts of cash and organization. The American Mafia drew on the structure and organization of the Italian Mafia, but they made the game their own. Thanks in particular to Lucky Luciano, who was one of the OG big guys here. They called themselves, as I mentioned, La Cosa Nostra. And from the 1950s onward, there were about 24 families operating in the U.S., all of which were overseen by a collection of leaders called the Commission. The Commission was meant to keep the peace between the families so that they didn't have all the infighting that they suffered with in Italy. The Commission is created by Lucky Luciano and made up of the heads of New York's famous five families, which I think we've all heard. Assemble the five families. And one of those guys was olive oil king Joseph Profaci. He was one of the OG heads of the five families, and he was on the Commission. The Commission oversees all of the mob activity in the U.S., and they kind of adjudicate conflicts. They sign off on hits. So, like, if a Don is going to get assassinated, it has to go through the Commission. You got to get permission. My God. I don't know if it's just for higher-ups or if it's anyone. I imagine the families themselves can make judgments about lower level.
Yeah.
Beneath the Commission, every family had the same structure. At the top is a boss or a Don in charge of the whole family. Directly beneath him is an underboss and sometimes a consigliere, which is like an advisor. The level of that underboss's power can vary. Sometimes they are being groomed to be the next Don, sometimes not. Beneath the underboss are the capos, and how many capos there are depends on the size of the family's enterprise, but capos typically have a designated territory or a racket that they're in charge of. So, like,
right.
You're in charge of Brooklyn or you're the gambling guy. Capos get most of the profits from whatever racket they're in charge of, and then, or whatever area they're running multiple rackets in, and then they pass the rest up to the Dons and the underbosses. So if you're a capo, you want to be as profitable as possible to keep the higher-ups happy and also make yourself a nice,
of course,
bunch of money. Below the capos are the soldiers, and these are the grunts. They're the guys who do whatever it takes. They're breaking kneecaps, intimidating people, shaking down small business owners, all the really pleasant stuff.
You know, the people who deserve it. Just the
everyday people trying to get by. And then the mafia also use people who aren't actually members of the mafia, but who are associates. So like lawyers, bankers,
right,
like that.
On their payroll.
Yeah. So apart from the associates, soldiers, capos, dons, underbosses, those are all made men, meaning they have been officially inducted into the mafia. And in order to become a made man, you have to be of Italian descent. Some families have rules about you have to be full Italian both sides. Some just let it be your dad. And you have to prove yourself, usually with murder. The Cosa Nostra has what's referred to as 10 commandments that are to be followed by all of their members. These were found in documents seized from the home of a Cosa Nostra leader, and they are as follows. Number 1. No one can present himself directly to another of our friends. There must be a third person to do it. So you need an intro. Someone already in has to be the one to introduce you.
Got it.
You can't just go up and be like, hey there.
I did not understand the beginning of that, so I just had like, you need a herald? Is where it went, like,
announcing.
Yes.
That would be amazing. I would love that.
I was very confused. You can't herald yourself and say, I would like a job, please.
Number 2, never look at the wives of friends.
And this one you have brought up before, and you know?
And when they say friends, they mean people in the mafia. Number 3, never be seen with cops. Number 4, don't go to pubs and clubs, which is an interesting one. But I think they mean
pubs and clubs that are not owned.
Right. Because if you get drunk and you start running your mouth in an unfamiliar.
And you can't really control that. So it can be your pubs or clubs, but not.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I would interpret it. Number 5, always be available for Cosa Nostra is a duty, even if your wife is about to give birth. Number 6, appointments must be absolutely respected. Number 7, wives must be treated with respect. Open for interpretation.
Yeah. I'm like,
And I do think that means more each other's wives, because notoriously mob men cheated on their wives all the time. And
we're batterers.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Number 8, when asked for any information, the answer must be the truth. 9, money cannot be appropriated if it belongs to others or other families. Business owners, yes. Other members of the like you can't be stealing from each other. And number 10, people who cannot be part of the Cosa Nostra. So this is a list of people who aren't allowed. Anyone who has a close relative in the police, anyone with a two-timing relative in the family, and anyone who behaves badly and doesn't hold to moral values. So if you've been sleeping with wives or whatever. And that's very smart because it's like, yeah, we're a criminal enterprise, but like we can't be having deception and two-timing and anybody who's going to betray us. We need loyalty and honesty. So in most places, one family ran a whole city. As I mentioned in New York, there were the 5 families, which were Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno. They infiltrated the unions in the city, which gave them access to the massive pension funds that the unions held and enabled them to control the labor force in an unprecedented way. So they controlled construction projects, they controlled the docks,
Right.
they controlled sanitation, as I said, and they could shut any of that shit down if they weren't getting what they wanted.
Whoa.
If the contractor doesn't give the right payouts for a specific job, job's not happening. And that's really what gave them such a stranglehold on New York, which is brilliant.
Right. It's really, really, really smart, but really fucked up.
I think that's part of it too, is you're like, God, that's fucking smart. Like,
Yeah.
there's an admiration to it. Again, like, you're like, you have to be smart and really fucking good at this for you to be doing all of this. So the mob had a glittery heyday in New York in the 1980s, thanks in large part to John Gotti, who really, it was like, by this point, a lot of their secrets were exposed. The Godfather was out. Like, people knew kind of more about how they operated and they were really interested. And John Gotti was very flashy. So this is a story about John Gotti from the documentary that stuck with me, that kind of started really igniting my like interest in this. And it's weird, but he was at a party and I can't remember, it was some young starlet. I want to say it was Denise Richards, but I could be wrong. She came up to John Gotti and gave him her phone number. After she left, John Gotti ripped her number up. His capo next to him was like, whoa, dude, like, what are you doing? This is fucking, she's hot as hell.
Yeah.
And John Gotti was like, she's younger than my daughter.
Oh,
And just was like, no. And I was like, God, if only more men.
if
were
only,
like John
especially in
Gotti.
power,
Yes.
because he was so gaudy and just flaunting everything,
Mhm.
probably to an embarrassing extent if you were like in the mafia. But
Yeah, I think some of the older school guys were like, what? Excuse me,
What?
sir. What are you doing? Lay low, bro.
Yeah.
But he was just like, we don't have to.
right, we own this bitch.
Yeah. And they did until the FBI figured out the right way to use the RICO Act, which the RICO is, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like racketeering something conspiracy. It's like a criminal conspiracy act, basically. People were like not using it well because they didn't know how to use it based on mob structure. And then one guy finally was like, here's what you do. You have to go after the family as the criminal enterprise. The drug dealing, whatever else is involved in it, is all part of this one criminal enterprise. And we can go after the commission as one big criminal enterprise and get them that way. They dismantled a lot of mob leadership, but the mafia is still alive and well here in the US and in Sicily. They're a little quieter these days.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite what they used to be, but they do still exist and they still operate. There's no reliable estimate that I could find on how many people have been murdered by the mafia, but I think it's safe to assume it's a lot.
Yeah, especially if that's just part of how you get new members.
Oh yeah. Well, and there are mafia hitmen who knows like how much of it is lore building for themselves or whatever, but like who have been like, yeah, I killed 88 people. I killed 100 and something people, you know. So it's got to be a lot of people. And of course, you know, like I said, small businesses can be driven into debt by mob taxation and have no safe way of getting recourse. And of course, many people have been beaten, threatened, otherwise traumatized by the mob, whether or not they volunteered to be involved with them or not. And while different dons have had different feelings about dealing drugs, the mafia has also dealt and trafficked a lot of drugs, including heroin. So as fun as and sexy as the mafia may seem, I don't necessarily want my olive oil money going to fund their activities.
No.
Interestingly, though, I did read an article that indicates that at least in the Italian mafia, they seem to be backing off the murder and the racketeering and moving more toward white-collar crime, which makes sense because it's like easier to do now. There's more white-collar crime to be had, and it's more lucrative and lower risk. Fraud seems to be more the name of the game now, including olive oil fraud. And whether or not you feel okay with giving the mafia your money now that they're possibly less murdery, oil fraud can still cause harm. Not only does it undercut the businesses of hardworking, legitimate oil producers, but it can be dangerous for public health. People can have allergic reactions to oils that they don't know are in their olive oil. Like it's supposed to be pure olive oil. What if you're allergic to hazelnuts or whatever other oil they put in
people
there?
are deathly allergic to tree nuts.
Cancer-causing carcinogens may also be present in lower quality oil. Plus, for all of olive oil's amazing abilities as a conduit for things like scents and flavors, it also is a conduit for toxins, which can concentrate in it very easily. Pesticides and other toxins can be absorbed by olive oil and concentrated in it and be present in toxic levels, which can make oil corruption really dangerous. In 1981, over 1,000 people in Spain died of what was deemed toxic oil syndrome after consuming olive oil tainted with rapeseed oil. And I read somewhere that the number was actually higher, like over 5,000. That may have been accounting for people who had like long-term illness and died from it later. But in any case, a shit ton of people died and were extremely ill for like their entire lives because of this contaminated oil, but still not regulated. Like still, it doesn't matter.
We're getting worse and worse at this. Just like people just get away with it.
It's more industries are becoming black boxes where we don't know what's happening in the middle part. And we just are like, well, it's too complicated to find out. So
it's not killing people this instant. It
Right.
could be like, affecting their futures. Like the plastic thing.
Right.
And I never remember which plastic it is because we had that whole thing. Like people were throwing their Nalgene bottles away and stuff.
Oh, yeah,
it was,
BPA,
like,
whatever.
Yeah, BPA. That's what I have locked into my brain about the plastic clear bottles with olive oil because, and I didn't realize that that was part of it, that it concentrates toxins. The leaching of the plastic into the oil is like not groovy.
Ooh.
Like you should be focusing on getting glass bottles, even though, but again, that's paywalling people who don't maybe have the money.
I mean, if you buy it in a plastic bottle and then you pour it into a glass, if you have an oil
that's actually
dispenser,
great.
which I do.
But who knows how long it's been sitting on their shelf?
Exactly. Yeah, so after reading all of this, I can understand why Tom's book made some people just like throw up their hands and be like, well, never mind, I'm just not going to use
Well, never mind. Yeah.
olive oil at all. Most of us aren't going to go to a mill and get olive oil straight from the mill. And it feels nearly impossible to discern what oil is legit and what isn't. And you might think that buying the most expensive oil is one way to do it, but unfortunately that is not a guarantee. But it's not impossible to figure out. It just takes some effort, which I highly encourage you to make. And I think the health benefits are worth that effort. And, you don't even have to put in that much effort yourself because guess what? Tom already did it.
Hey, thanks, Tom.
His website, extravirginity.com.
Because of course it is.
Yeah, it's got great tips. It's in the show notes. Good tips for finding good oil, as does the book. And I will share some of those tips with you right now. So do not feel like your oil has to come from Italy. Lots of places make great oil. Greece, Spain, California, as I mentioned, although dubious perhaps, and Australia even makes some great oil, in New Zealand. All sorts of places in the Middle East, like anywhere that it's arid can make like decent oil. As we have been saying, yes, you want to keep your olive oil in a dark bottle, preferably glass, to guard against the light. And don't buy too much of it. Buy an amount that you'll use relatively quickly. Freshness is really key with olive oil. Check the expiration date. Better yet, check the bottling date and try to get one that was bottled recently. Those dates, as I said, can be deceptive, but they're better than nothing. So, for example, the one that I got, and this is not an ad, I'm not being paid by this olive oil company, but the one I got is called Graza. It is in a plastic bottle, but it's dark plastic. The first thing that caught my eye is it's single origin. So that's another thing that I learned. This isn't in Tom's book, but a lot of olive oils, you'll look at the label and it'll be like some from Spain, some from this place, some from that place, some from here. And that's obviously a lot more ways that it can get contaminated. And this one says no blending, no funny business. Of course, they might say that on the label and it wouldn't be true. But the other thing that caught my eye is it has a lot number, the harvest date, the bottling date, and the best by date. So just like look for more accountability on the bottle, I guess. Remember that bitterness, pungency, and that back of the throat burn are good qualities in olive oil. You don't want it to taste bad or like musty or like it's rotting or something like that. Oil should still taste fresh and clean and vibrant. Even though it's no true guarantee, definitely buy a bottle that is labeled extra virgin. Other oils are definitely not up to the standard, so at least you've taken one step by buying something that actually says extra virgin. Organic certifications can mean that there's more oversight, so you can try and find organic. Though, as I said, high price is no guarantee of quality. Low price is basically a guarantee of bad quality. So Tom recommends avoiding stuff that's under $10 a liter or so. That was in 2012, so maybe that's a little higher at this point. If you can, of course, find a store where you can taste it and where the people know where it comes from, like can tell you details. Tom also recommends trying for a store that you know has stringent standards. So he recommends a couple like the Olive Press, Zingerman's, and Beyond the Olive. He also has tons more recommendations for resources and places to buy. So again, highly recommend going to the website or picking up his book. Speaking of, I want to end by reading a passage from Tom's book that I found really arresting and beautiful when I read it. And I do this to reiterate, after all this bad stuff, the magic of olives and olive oil in a way that Tom does just much more articulately than I ever could. So here we go. These are Tom's words. A path runs past my house, angling up the steep slope between drywall terraces faced with granite and pink limestone, where grapevines climb trellises of wild chestnut branches bleached by the sun to the color of bone. It's at least as old as the Middle Ages, and a local historian believes it dates to Roman times, perhaps even to the Iron Age. The earth is soft underfoot between the uneven cobbles, and large stretches of its course are overgrown in summertime by clover and thyme and wild mint. Yet the landscape still respects this ancient route. The terraces defer to its straight, sharp vector, and the medieval farmhouses on either side face toward it like people around a campfire. The path was here before every other thing in this landscape, and everything is oriented to it. Everything except one. As the path crosses a saddle on the hillside 100 meters above my house, it makes a small horseshoe bend where the centuries of travelers have taken 5 extra steps to avoid something in their way. This ancient obstacle is an olive tree. The bark is pierced with holes made by woodworms, birds, nails, and what may have been bullets. During World War II, partisans sometimes hid from the fascists and Nazis inside the hollow trunks of giant olive trees. There's a patch of charred wood from some wildfire beyond living memory, which must have devastated the tree. But in the fiercely patient way of the olives, green shoots grew up from the charred remains, and the tree was reborn. Like the mythic olive tree on the Acropolis, cherished by the Athenians as the talisman of their city. Or like the olive tree at the head of the bay in Ithaca, which Odysseus sees when he finally returns there after his voyage. Until I moved here 10 years ago, this detail made no sense to me. Why would Homer have chosen an olive tree to make Odysseus realize he's back in Ithaca? Then I began to notice the olive tree on the hill behind my house as I returned each day from my own modest odysseys. Somehow it was that tree, and not the old stone path or the shape of the horizon or even the roofline of my house that I looked for. It seemed natural to think of the tree in mythic terms. It has watched a procession of peasants, priests, Napoleonic soldiers and Renaissance mercenaries, highwaymen, and barefoot saints walk down this roadway and vanish into the sandstorm of time.
Wow.
Yeah. And I hope against hope that I have done justice to this topic for the people who love olive oil so much like Tom, and among whom I now count myself. I'm on the olive oil train. I hope I haven't truly ruined olive oil for you or discouraged you from exploring it. Please read the book. Please become obsessed, because the olives deserve it, and you deserve what they can give you.
We do. Thank you.
We do.
Yeah, it's just going to make me more careful. And it's a great PSA, because I have not been careful about getting extra virgin or anything like that, because Keegan said something about like not liking the taste or something, and I was like,
well,
okay,
that's the thing, is like it is more pungent. It is,
and I like that.
like you got it's got real flavor, but if you're not getting that real flavor,
then
and it's not
lamp.
for everybody. It sucks that it's like good oil is not just accessible to everyone.
Thanks, mafia. Thanks, government.
Thanks, big companies.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And that's what it comes down to, right? Oh my God. But of course, that's what it comes down to. That's what the ruinous thing about it is, that the poor olive has done nothing wrong except be amazing. These guys make it impossible for us to reap the benefits of this fucking earth.
You can't exist right anymore.
Word. That was fascinating.
Thanks for listening. Go soak yourself in olive oil and eat a bunch of it, and go pick up the book. Go to the website. Be discerning. That's all. Have money and be discerning.
Right.
We love you all.
Go get some oils.
Go get some oils and use it to eat the rude.
Yeah.